Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Sieberg at Google in New York City, and I am joined right now by Linda Feldmann. She is the Chief White House Correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor. Linda, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Hi, sure, happy to do it.
So the first question to you is about Mitt Romney's campaign, and there are folks who have said if he loses in Michigan, it's really going to be extremely detrimental to him, that perhaps some have said he really shouldn't even get the nomination if he can't win in Michigan. He's struggling there in the polls. Why do you think that is, and what can he be doing about it?
Well, I think part of the problem for Mitt Romney is Rick Santorum, is that Rick Santorum, who is now his main opponent for the nomination, is in many ways a better fit for Michigan. He comes from Pennsylvania. He has a working class background. There are a lot of social conservatives in Michigan. And he really speaks to them with his very conservative positions on issues like gay marriage, abortion, all the social issues that have been coming to the fore lately. Mitt Romney he's from Michigan, but it's been a long time since he lived there. He hasn't lived there since he was 18 years old. It's been decades since his father was governor there. So the Romney name really doesn't carry much cachet anymore. And there are many people who think it was a mistake for Romney to play up biography so much going into Michigan, that really he needed to pound hard on the economic issue and talk about how he would create jobs, because Michigan obviously has been hurting very much economically since the recession began.
Right, of course, we've heard some of the woes in Detroit, of course, and this is in Michigan as well. You mentioned Rick Santorum, and recently he had this trifecta in Colorado, Minnesota, and Missouri, taking all three of those states. How do you explain that, those resounding wins, especially in light of what happened with Mitt Romney in Florida?
Right. Mitt Romney did very, very well in Florida. He crushed the competition. He then, I wouldn't say he took a pass in those next three states, but he didn't really play them very hard. He didn't spend a lot of time there, and he didn't spend much money at all. In part, that was because they were not binding contests. Two of them were caucuses, and one was a non-binding primary, basically a beauty contest. What he failed to realize was that the media would be watching, and that Rick Santorum would see this as a huge opening and play those states very hard, and he was rewarded for that. And thus Santorum came up and bit him and won all three. And ever since then, Romney has had a terrible narrative. He did win the CPAC straw poll, for which he bussed in supporters. He did win the main caucuses, but those were minor compared to the Santorum trifecta.
Let's talk a little bit about favorability ratings for Mitt Romney, whether it's among Republicans or the general electorate. He's got this enormous support from the super PACs, and yet he's still having these trouble getting some traction in the ratings. How do you explain that?
Well, he's taken a lot of negative attacks. I mean, the advent of the super PACs has had an enormous impact on this race, namely in making them way more negative. Whereas a candidate likes to mix negative and positive, the super PACs have been coming in, buying ads, either in support of a candidate or against a candidate, and just unloading. In the Florida primaries, the ads were 92% negative. We've never seen anything like this before. So Mitt Romney took a lot of negative shrapnel from the Gingrich super PAC, funded by Sheldon Adelson, the casino magnate, and he's never really recovered from that. I mean, a competitive primary is going to get negative, and a candidate's image is going to take a hit, and he can eventually recover, but for now, he is underwater in terms of his personal favorability, and he's got some work to do to really bring himself back in the public image, because he's behind in the national polls. He's behind Rick Santorum by about 10 points on the latest Gallup daily tracking, and of course, as you mentioned, he's struggling even in his home state of Michigan.
Hmm. Now, we've got this debate tonight in Arizona, so maybe an opportunity for all of the candidates, of course, to change those polling numbers. What do you expect out of Arizona? Anything that you're looking at in particular tonight?
Well, I think it's really going to be the Mitt and Rick show. We're going to see, those are the two main competitors tonight. We're going to see what each of them can bring to address their deficits. For Mitt Romney, it really is getting away from biography and negativity and really reinforcing his positives as a candidate, reinforcing his presidential demeanor, his positive plans. It was not a coincidence that he came out today with his tax plan, a plan that would reduce tax rates by 20% across the board. He's really trying to get the conversation back into his wheelhouse, which is the economy and his business background. For Rick Santorum, the trick is to get away from some of the very hard right social positions that have been in his sphere lately. There was the story yesterday that broke on Drudge. Somebody leaked to Drudge a tape of Rick Santorum speaking at Ave Maria College in Florida 4 years ago with some pretty out there remarks about Satan and how the country's institutions are being taken over by Satan, including Protestant churches. So Rick Santorum needs to get away from the whole Satan narrative, away from birth control, away from all the very hard right conservative positions that he's been talking about lately, and pivot back to the economy, because he needs to address his electability. If people don't think he can be elected, he's going to have a hard time. Elected in November, he's going to have a hard time beating Romney in the primaries.
Now, this is the last debate leading up to Super Tuesday on March 6th. Do you think that Super Tuesday will eliminate any of the remaining 4 candidates, or will they all still be in the race together come March 7th?
I think it depends on what happens. I mean, for example, Newt Gingrich could win the Georgia primary. If basically to keep going, a candidate needs to have money. And to keep taking in money, a candidate needs to have some kind of success. So you could have a split decision on Super Tuesday where Romney wins some, Santorum wins some, Gingrich wins some, and if everybody gets a little something to keep going on, then we'll keep going. And if you're Mitt Romney, you want Newt Gingrich actually at this point to stay in the race, because he dilutes the non-Romney vote. All along, it's been Romney versus a non-Romney, and we've seen the role of non-Romney played by a series of candidates. So if Romney can keep sort of splitting the opposition, then he still can win the nomination.
Now, I want to turn to some questions we've actually picked up from our Google Plus Politics and Elections page. The first one comes from David, and it has to do with debates. His question is, debate after debate seems to leave no clear winners. Maybe once or twice one of the present quartet made a hit, but have they really driven caucus or primary wins, really?
Well, I think in a way they have. This is the most debate-heavy campaign cycle I've ever seen, and this is my 5th presidential cycle. You've had, for example, Newt Gingrich, when John King led off with the question about the interview with his ex-wife and the request for an open marriage, and Newt Gingrich just took John King out. That, I think, really helped him. It showed that he was assertive, confident, on the offensive, and he went on to win the South Carolina primary. Take it into Florida. Newt Gingrich was terrible in Florida. Mitt Romney was very strong, very prepared, took his attacks right to Gingrich, and he beat him quite soundly. So I think, it's interesting. Tonight's debate will be in Arizona, but I think that the audience will be mostly in Michigan, which is the most contested primary next Tuesday. And, some debates are kind of a draw where nobody really makes a headline or does anything all that noteworthy, but there's always that opportunity. And especially with only 4 guys on the stage at this point, each one will have a fair amount of time. to make their mark. So I think chances are it'll be worth watching.
Yeah, it can be a little crowded up there early on.
That's right.
Debates. The next question comes to us from James. He asks, which are the most interesting primary challenges to congressional blue dogs this year?
Oh my gosh, unfortunately, let's see, congressional blue dogs, if they're talking about, I'm more familiar with the Senate than the House. The House race is really, is still shaking down. Let's see. But if we're talking about conservative Democrats, you know, a lot of them have dropped out and have decided not to run. People like Heath Shuler, congressman he's from North Carolina. There's one in Tennessee who's not running. No names really pop to mind at this point, but the Blue Dog Coalition has really taken a hit. I mean, even after the last election, we lost about half of the members. So it's a pretty small bunch at this point, and there really aren't, in either party, that many moderates left. I mean, we're at the most polarized time I've ever seen here.
Now, the last question actually comes to us from, they're identified as letters to the editor. Now, I want to give you an opportunity to answer this question because it is posted out there.
Okay.
I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit, but it basically says it's the year of the super PAC. Millions of dollars have been spent already. And the question is asking if media companies aren't the ultimate beneficiary because of this constantly promoting election hype and gamesmanship that's tied to these super PACs. Since a lot of this money is being spent on TV ads. So I just wanted to get your response to that and to super PACs in general.
That's a very good point. I mean, and if you're looking at the world of media, you have to look at television first and foremost as the beneficiary of that. The vast majority of the money gets spent on TV ads in a few critical states. Although some of it is national money, but absolutely TV. I mean, in a normal campaign cycle, TV stations, especially in critical early states like New Hampshire, make a ton of money. But this time is completely unprecedented. I think so far we've had about $250 million spent so far by super PACs. And not only do the media outlets make a lot of money, but the campaign staffers who do the media buys, they also get a cut, and they're making out quite well.
Well, Linda, it's been a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Linda Feldmann is the Chief White House Correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor. We appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks, Daniel.